Now, the Hunt Palmer Show.
A magic beyond anything you could ever imagine.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Sagrera Farms on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Locking down the middle of the day.
You really think that's the best idea?
Live from the Raising Cane's studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
It's quite a piece of work.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Raising Cane studio downtown in the capital city on this Thursday, working towards the weekend. Brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. Got Jordan Kitchens, Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos. Saints continue their work in training camp. Luke Johnson's there. He'll be with us in 15 minutes. There has been an advancement in the information that we have about the lawsuit between Ole Miss and two of LSU's players, and I'm going to change my tune on that just a little bit based on Sam Hutchins' work earlier today up there in Mississippi. We'll do that in half an hour. Easton Royal knows where he's headed this fall. Not for school, for games. We'll talk about a little bit of that. Got some sound from Saints camp and what I'm going to be looking for when we get our next look at LSU this evening just after 6:30 on the Ponderosa. We'll get to that in hour number 2 as well. So plenty to get to here on this Thursday. Appreciate you hanging out with us. Let's get started with our opening drive.
Welcome to the big league.
It's time for Hunt's Opening Drive. Presented by Fabry Chevrolet GMC in St. Francisville.
We talked about Sam Leavitt a good bit yesterday. I spent my entire time watching him, and I think he's the story early on in camp. But you heard me say what I say for 12 minutes. Lane Kiffin has seen him a lot of the summer and certainly saw everything that he did at practice yesterday. So why don't you listen to the head coach talk about him instead of me? So we'll go back to some of the sound from yesterday and Kiffin talking about Sam Leavitt being right on pace.
Like I said, I thought Sam had a great day today. And really, I don't look at it that he was really far behind because he did a lot of mental work, did a lot of throwing stuff in different situations, and even when he couldn't, move as well. So I think his progression's been really good, and I think he's right on pace. And
that's a bite we played for you yesterday, but it kind of sets the tone for what we're talking about here in this bite, and we'll get to some that we didn't play on yesterday's show. I think it's hard to tell if he's right on pace right now. That's just the outsider's position. If he hasn't been out there in 7-on-7 and specifically some real 11-on-11 stuff, I think it would be difficult to determine whether or not he's right on pace. But I will say this. One, Lane Kiffin knows a lot more about learning his offense than I do. And two, he's pretty much right on pace with what Trinidad Chambliss was last year, because Trinidad Chambliss didn't spend any time in the spring with Ole Miss last year, and Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weiss Jr. got him up to speed, and he was ready to go pretty much right out of the gate. I mean, look, you had Austin Simmons as the starting quarterback early on, but 2 weeks into this thing, Trinidad Chambliss was kind of piloting the ship. LSU played him in September, and Trinidad Chambliss was the quarterback. So that gives me some hope, even if I think that suggesting he's right on pace right now after one practice with nobody wearing pads doesn't give me the warm and fuzzies. Now, Lane Kiffin was asked about his mobility. That's not something we got to see yesterday. He was stationary all of yesterday. The extent of what I saw him not walking was light jogs station to station. So Kiffin spoke to his mobility.
He looked really good. Sam's been moving around really well, and I wouldn't, if you just went out today and saw him, I don't think that you'd think there was an injury. I think he's all the way back from that. Now it's just getting up with the timing of everything.
I would agree with that based on the little bit that I saw for sure. Now, I did talk to a couple different media members who were like, didn't he kind of look a little bit gimpy? And I understood what they were talking about, but my retort was, I think that's just kind of his gait. He's got a little bit of a back and forth when he jogs. And if you turn on the highlight tape, put it on YouTube, he runs with this, he's not gliding. Like he's kind of a heavy-footed runner with some real athleticism. But it's part of his game. This is a guy who has run for north of 600, upwards of 800 yards for Arizona State, has ripped off big rushing plays, has picked up huge third downs, has gotten into the end zone. He is a dynamic runner, and Trinidad Chambliss was a dynamic runner for Ole Miss last year. At times, it was to create yards. At times, it was to extend plays. But Kiffin's offense depends on some athleticism from the quarterback. You don't have to be Michael Vick back there. You don't have to be Jaden Daniels back there. But you do have to move. You've got to be Jackson Dart. You've got to be Trinidad Chambliss. Blake Sims was an SEC wide receiver type. But you've got to be able to move. And Leavitt has been able to move. But the question is, can he do it moving forward? And I don't know if we have that answer today, but Lane Kiffin was asked yesterday, like, what's your confidence level calling a designed run for him?
Yeah, I don't know that I have that answer right now for you. I think that there's so much that goes into that, of the game plan of who you're playing, what defense they play, how's your running back or running backs running, what's the exact situation in the game. So that's too hard to answer. I think as you're hearing me talk, you probably get a feel for, like, we don't just do what we do. That's not how we run systems, programs, whatever. It's always evolving, changing to what is that team, what is the specific needs for who you're playing, all those things. So I can't even tell you at this time of year what the team's even going to look like, even what I know already, just because the variables that start to happen and injuries and things. And so I don't know that.
Now, the second bite we played you, I said, I'm not quite sure about that. That bite, I buy every word of. I'm still learning Kiffinese, okay? I'm still getting indoctrinated into Lane Kiffin's speak, right? I've got a pretty good handle on Will Wade's verbiage. Had that for 5 years here. I've got a pretty good handle on what Jay Johnson's trying to suggest. I think I had a pretty good handle for what Brian Kelly was doing after 4 years. I'm still learning on Kiffin, but that soundbite, I'm buying. Sometimes you need your quarterback in the run game. Maybe you're not winning at the line of a scrimmage. You need to win with another body as opposed to just being physical and knocking guys off. So you use the quarterback as an extra man so you can have more guys blocking up front. Sometimes you feel like there's a hole in a defense that you can exploit with the quarterback run. I would look at Blake Baker's defense 2 years ago, maybe even at times last year, where the quarterback run gave LSU fits. And if you're playing a team that looks like that, you may want to incorporate it. By the same token, if you don't feel very good at all about your backup quarterbacks, you're probably not going to put your quarterback in harm's way as often. If your running back is gashing the other team, why risk your quarterback? Plus, the running backs are better ball carriers anyway. There are a lot of variables that go into that, as to just say, hey, like, how good you feel about Leavitt running for 6 yards right now? And I think that there will be some quarterbacks in the Kiffin era at LSU that are more dynamic runners that need to run more. There will be some quarterbacks he has that aren't as gifted there but have other strengths that he feels are best for the team, and they'll use those. That's been amplified over the course of Lane Kiffin's career as a play caller. He has had myriad different skill sets at the quarterback position, and they've all produced, maybe not in the exact same way. I would suggest that Jackson Dart, Trinidad Chambliss, Matt Corral, and Sam Leavitt have a lot of fairly similar characteristics. I don't put them all in a small little keyhole, but like it's fairly similar. None of those guys possesses Jaden Daniels' mobility. None of those guys is that. But they're all about 6'1", 6'2". They're all pretty good runners. None of them, I would suggest, has an arm that's just going to blow you away at the NFL Combine, but it's good enough. They're just capable college quarterbacks. Now, Dart excelled and became a first-round pick. Corral is not. I don't think Chambliss is, and we'll see what Leavitt becomes this year. But they're all fairly similar, and so you look at their running totals over the years, and you kind of expect that from Leavitt. I think the thing for me is that I'm going to look at the first time he takes off against Clemson as a real watershed moment for my analysis of this team. Because as I told you yesterday, after our first look at this team for 12 minutes, I go, we're not going to see in this practice period, this viewing period, we're not going to see him move. We're not going to be able to report on that. And that's fine, but we're not. So the first time he takes off against Clemson and looks the part, I'll go, okay, that's what that's supposed to look like. If he doesn't, if he's hesitant to take off, or he stays back behind the line of scrimmage and surveys the field and ends up maybe throwing it away, I'll let this, by the same token, on the other side of things, go, I'd like to see him tuck and go there, right? I remember vividly watching Jaden Daniels in the Superdome against Florida State in his first LSU start, first game in the Brian Kelly era. And I remember him taking off on that first drive. Y'all remember he busted 2 big runs on that first drive. And he hit full stride, and I went, oh, he's not just like a mobile quarterback. He's like one of the most dynamic players on the field. He's got speed that can burn a linebacker to the corner. He's got speed that can separate and take it 50. That's different than mobile. And I saw that in person in the Superdome. I don't expect Sam Leavitt to ever look like that because that's not his skill set. But I think I'll have a similar reaction when he takes off against Clemson and runs for 16 yards, if that should happen. I'll be sitting in the press box. I'll go, okay, that's an element that we know he had at Arizona State, that we know he did not have in the spring because he was hurt, that we didn't see in fall camp because they kicked us out of practice, but now it's there. Okay, and now I can analyze what this thing looks like. I'll be hesitant to do that until then, but I will tell you not to like throw cold water on this thing. Like I just don't know. So I can't declaratively state he's healthy. He looks healthy to me. The head coach is telling you he's healthy. I have no reason to believe there's some lingering issue. But I'm being cautious this August, as we were not last year to an extent that we should have been probably. And I'll just tell you that I know that he has it in there previously. I'm comfortable suggesting he should have it moving forward. I'm not confident enough to tell you he does have it until I see it, and I don't think I'm going to see it until Clemson. But look, Lane Kiffin did say it's the best he's seen Sam Leavitt look.
I thought Sam had a great day today, really looked the best he's looked, and that was exciting to see. Looks like he's getting more comfortable with the receivers.
And I think that is about the passing part of it, right? It probably not about the running part of it because there wouldn't have been any pressure on him, and nobody's got pads on, and they can't hit him anyway. But I think that's about him throwing the football, seeing guys open, getting comfortable who's out there and who we throwing it to and where they need the football and those types of things. And this whole month is just going to be so critical for Sam Leavitt to develop and become the quarterback that LSU needs to achieve the goals that I think most people are putting on them. Expectations, goals, they're all kind of blended into one. You're expected to try to make the playoffs here. And if you don't have a good and healthy Sam Leavitt, you're not. If you have one, I think you got a shot. So one day in, we'll get another look at the Tigers tonight. That's at 6:30. We'll have a practice report up at LouisianaSports.net, and we'll certainly be talking about it on Friday's show. Thursday's show is brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. Let's go down to Saints camp. Luke Johnson's been there for a week and a half. He'll join us next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Marucci, the official bat of Major League Baseball. Say that again. The official bat of Major League Baseball, and they make it right here in Baton Rouge. Not in Kentucky. Not in Cooperstown. In Baton Rouge. And you can go see where they make the official bat of Major League Baseball right here in the city limits. 1,200 of them every single day, shipped off to the best players in the world. If you want to learn the story of how Marucci came to be, go take a tour. If you want to see where they make all those bats and ship them off, go check it out. And if you want to join the Hitter's House and take some of that Marucci lumber and take some swings, you can do that as well. It's all there at Marucci. Get tickets to the Hitter's House or the campus tour at MarucciSports.com. Join the Hitter's House. Become a member, and you get access to their cages 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's the official bat of Major League Baseball. It's Marucci online at MarucciSports.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
Thursday show is always brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. I'm going to change my tune a little bit on LSU's, well, not LSU's, on the lawsuit that Ole Miss has filed against 2 LSU players. We'll do that coming up in 15 minutes. Let's talk some Saints. Luke Johnson's been all over it for NOLA.com and The Advocate. Joins us on Thursdays on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Luke, how are you?
I'm doing great, buddy. You ready to spend the entire section talking about the Barry and Brown hype train?
I mean, we're spending a lot of time on the Barry and Brown hype train, and it is off the rails at this point. Mason Tipton's not out there, so it's got to be Barry and Brown. So tell me about it. What you seeing?
Yeah, man. I mean, look, he's just been a lot of fun, right? I mean, everybody who watched him at LSU last year knew what he brought to the return game, right? And you just kind of assuming that's going to be what he is as a pro, especially considering his frame. But man, he's been probably the best wide receiver in training camp so far. Look, we're talking about 7 days of training camp, right? And we haven't seen him in a game. But, I mean, today, you know, he shut things down by making a 46-yard over-the-shoulder great adjustment catch to end a 2-minute drill. And that's just like, I don't know, the third straight day we've seen him do something really impressive. And it's not just one-on-ones. It's not 7-on-7 where, you know, there's not like, a ton of people on the field. He's doing this stuff in team drills. It's really exciting. And I don't know what the role is going to be for him. It might be might be he's the fourth or fifth receiver, and he only gets a few opportunities. But if you're seeing this out of your sixth rounder, you feel pretty good about where he's at.
Yeah, look, Jalen Polk retires, and so that leaves a little bit of space on the roster, and then you feel like there are special team spots available as well. Like, where are you looking at the pecking order with the wide receivers this early in camp right now?
Yeah, I mean, early in camp, like I'd put Barry Brown as the number 4 right now. I think we've seen, frankly, a lot more out of him than we have out of Bryce Lance, which is, it's not a knock on Bryce Lance. He's 7 practices into his first training camp as a rookie. But I feel pretty good about where they're at 1 through 3, and if they're able to get anything out of Barry Brown or Bryce Lance, you feel really, really good about the whole receiver room in its entirety. And that's not even counting guys who, I think have done some nice things. Kevin Austin, who's been on the team for a couple of years now, he's played. He's made big plays in real games that count. I think he's looked pretty solid. Ronnie Bell, who had the great one-handed touchdown catch in Week 18 last year, I think he's looked really good. And both of those guys, I think, are going to struggle to make the roster. This is just a deeper wide receiver core than really they've had in a while around here.
It's exciting because obviously last year it was lessened to almost nothing with the injuries and everything that went into last season. Tyler Shock, I gotta ask about him. I'm not going to bury the lead any further. Like, what's he looked like? He's the most important guy out there.
I think it's been up and down for him. Everything that you want to see from how the quarterback is operating the offense, I think has looked good. But in terms of the actual on-field performance, it's been kind of hit or miss, just being real. And I think a lot of people are going into this with really big expectations for Shock, and I'm part of that. I have maybe the biggest expectations for him. But I think right now it's like the process of working a lot of new pieces in. He's doing a lot of stuff where he's throwing to the backs and the tight ends, and we haven't really seen him open it up yet. But today, even today, he threw 2 interceptions today, both in the end zone, and you can explain both of them away. One, he was trying to throw the ball away, and Kool-Aid McKinstry just made a great leaping pick. And the other was, very similar to Barry Brown's touchdown, where it's the last play of a 2-minute drill. They're down by 4, and he's just kind of chucking the ball up to the end zone. And Quincy Riley made a play on it. But, I still think it's just been uneven enough to where you're just like, okay, when are they going to start really stacking the days? Because, even though he threw the 2 picks today, he finished 11 of 14, that's not a bad day. But you just want to see the signs that he's really, really coming into his own going into year 2. I think we'll get there. It's just not there yet.
Well, you mentioned the 2 corners making a play. Let's do that thing we do in training camp or fall camp around here in Baton Rouge and flip it into a positive. If it's a negative, those 2 guys making plays on the ball is obviously positive. Cornerback, to me, is a question mark on this team. What have you seen from those 2 guys?
Yeah, I mean, I really like what I've seen out of both of them. And I think this kind of goes for the defense as a whole. They look really good. I feel like I'm going to be putting my foot in my mouth, because that was the one thing I was saying I was a little concerned about coming into this year. But look, I think depth is still an issue, right? I think you can get by with Ike Yadam or Martin Emerson. I think Jaden Price, who I just kind of you did not really even consider as a true NFL player coming into the year, has looked really good in training camp. He's their backup slot. But, it's all either untested, or the guys who have been tested have huge question marks at your depth spots. But, just looking at the starting 11, I mean, Caden Ellis has been a monster, blowing up run plays, getting into the backfield as a rusher. I mean, Chase Young looks like the fully realized version of Chase Young that everybody was waiting on. He looks like a superstar pass rusher. I just like their pieces, man. I think they're part of the reason that we're talking about, this offense looking up and down. I think they're giving them really tough looks every play out there. And I remember, thinking it might have been my first or second year on the beat, like first training camp. This is like 2018 or 19, those really good Saints teams. And I was thinking like, man, that the Saints offense might not be any good because they kind of suck against this defense right now. And it turned out that both sides were just really, really good at football, So I think you just gotta let it play out a little bit. But I've been really, really encouraged by what I've seen on the defensive side of the ball.
Luke Johnson's our guest, covers the New Orleans Saints for NOLA.com and the Advocate. You mentioned Chase Young looking like a superstar, and that's very much a possibility. Everybody that follows this team is aware of that. Kelvin Banks has got a lineup on the other side. How's he held up?
I mean, like, it feels like not good, right? But, I just, like, that's one I'm just still not worried about. Like, I think everything we saw last year when he was really good as a rookie, right? Not great, right? Not like one of those like Rashawn Slater seasons where he's like an all-pro right away. But you see what he did as a rookie. You're like, yeah, that's going to be a foundational cornerstone player for him for a long time. And then you start talking to people about him and the improvements he's made in the off season and the kind of devotion to like the technique and the little things. Like I think him having 3-4 reps a day in practice against Chase Young where Chase is just like mauling him that's not really going to make me come off the fact that I think he's going to be a really good player. And I think the encouraging thing is, after one of those reps, you see Chase and Kelvin talking. And I think it's like a really good thing for him to be able to go up against like somebody who frankly I think is going to be one of the best edge rushers in the NFL this year. And to not only get that like one-on-one experience, but to then talk about it after and see how somebody who's kind of set up for greatness is kind of approaching it. I think that's just going to be beneficial. I mean, this is so weird, man. It's like one of those things where like even on the stuff that has been not so good for this team, I think it's going to be good for this team. I think that's maybe just because I'm coming at this from a sense where I think they're going to be better this year, but you can see the good even in the bad.
And then last thing here, just some bumps and bruises here and there since last time we spoke. Obviously, Kendre Miller's name came up, and I was disappointed to see the rookie out of Auburn at right guard potentially have a little bit of an injury. What can you tell us?
Yeah, I think the Kendre one, like I'm going to have to see him get back to the field to feel good about it, just considering his history, right? That's one that just like immediately like your eyebrows go up when you hear his name, and I don't think it's good for Kendre, obviously. A guy who has injury history, dealing with a camp injury. But, I mean, beyond that, like, I think Devin Neal's looked really good. I think Audric Estime's looked really good. I think Ty Chandler is somebody I gave, like, a very minimal shot at making this roster, just considering the logjam they have there. Two straight practices with, like, explosive runs. So, like, they've got depth there. And Kendre's like, I mean, I think he's got to make it back and play to even have a shot at this roster. And then the other guys, Jeremiah Wright was one. Another rookie, Christian Miller, has a toe injury. Kellen Moore, kind of described him as day to day. That's another one where I just like I want to see him come back. Like I don't have any reason to think that Kellen's just like straight up lying to us. And Christian Miller has a turf toe injury; he's going to be out for 12 weeks. But that's like a shoulder for Wright and a toe for Miller. Like I want to see if they're truly day to day. So they'll be off Friday, tomorrow, and Saturday we should get a little better sense of where they're at in their recovery.
You can follow his stuff at Luke Johnson on Twitter. He's there with NOLA.com and The Advocate every single day with the New Orleans Saints. He's with us on Thursdays. Thanks, man.
My pleasure, buddy. See you soon.
That is Luke Johnson. Brought to you by Fabry Chevrolet GMC, online at FabryChevrolet.com. That's FabryChevrolet.com. Rolled out some new offers for you as we've gotten now into a new month here in August. And want to invite you to go by and check them out. Again, they're online. They're on Highway 61 in St. Francisville. And they've got incredible deals. 2026 Chevy Silverado 1500s, 0% APR financing for 5 years, plus no monthly payments for 90 days. That's until August 31st. They ran that through July. You can still get by and get that in August if you want a truck, but maybe looking for a GMC Sierra. Those 1500s have 2.9 APR for 72 months plus an additional $1,500 in allowance. That is now through August 31st. If you want a great deal on a truck and you're looking into a Chevy Silverado or a GMC Sierra, look no further. Fabry Chevrolet GMC. Highway 61, of course, online at FabryChevrolet.com. That's FabryChevrolet.com. Just a little bit of an aside on top of Luke's comment there, and maybe we'll get into it a little bit in hour number 2 as well. Like, if Kendre Miller misses 2 or 3 weeks, you can just shut the door because it's too often, and there are other guys. And I'll take Luke's word for it on Devin Neal. I know that Autry Estime impressed his coaching staff at the end of last year, and he's still here. Ty Chandler's ripping off runs, and you're just not going to make the team if you're not on the field. And I know that Kendre Miller and Dennis Allen got sideways, and I get that, and that maybe he wasn't given quite a fair shake, or maybe there were some decisions made that were out of his hand, and I get that. Things happen in the course of a locker room and personal things that happen, but, like, this is a new regime, and it's the same old song and dance, and he is never produced at a level in practice, training camp, preseason, regular season, like never to a level that makes you want to go, well, we got to keep giving this guy chances. I know that he was a reasonably high draft pick, but like if you're out all the time, they're just going to move on. And I don't have anything against Kendre Miller, but they got other guys. And so that's an injury to look for. Like Luke said, if he's not out there on Saturday, and if he's not out there by next Wednesday and the first preseason rolls around and he doesn't play, and then all of a sudden you realize that cut day's on the horizon, you just move on. And I think he'll probably find another spot because he was a high enough draft pick to do that. But like the Saints don't have to wait around anymore. They've got some guys that can fill that role. So that's just being realistic there with Kendre Miller. All right, I'm gonna change my tune on this lawsuit. We'll do that next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Boudreaux's Electrical Services, boudreauxelectrical.com. Neil and Melissa have been running the show for 40 years. You may already have a Generac home standby generator. You may have bought it from the big box store. That's very doable. But do you ever hear from them? What if you've got a mechanical issue? Do you know today that if that power goes out this afternoon, that your generator is going to kick on? If not, get the Boudreaux's Boost. Call Boudreaux's Electrical at 985-397-1562. It's 985-397-1562. Or at Gonzalez, 225-300-9389. Give them a call and say, hey, I bought from somewhere else, but I'd really like y'all to service and monitor my generator. Because they can do it 24/7. They'll know there's a mechanical issue before you do. And when they do, they'll send a local team out to fix it. So that when that storm blows through, if that hurricane does show up, you've got the peace of mind to know, hey, my generator is ready to roll. That's the difference with Boudreaux. It's local. So contact Neil and Melissa at Boudreaux's Electrical. Find them online, boudreauxelectrical.com. That's Boudreaux's Electrical Services.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
Thursday show is always brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. Some of the best beef in the entire country is just north of Baton Rouge. I'm not being hyperbolic. It is. And it's not some subjective measurement either. They can objectively measure what that beef rates on the intramuscular fat scale. And if you're looking for prime Angus beef, you get it every time with Sean Sagrera and Sagrera Farms. It's a process. Every cow is a 3-year process. From the genetic construction to raising them on grass, finishing them on grain, dry age 45 days for prime, tender, flavorful beef. If you're not happy with the beef that you buy on a weekly basis for your steaks, for your burgers, or whatever it is that you may make with that beef, and you feel like you're paying an exorbitant amount of price for a bad product, well, get the good product. It's right here north of town, Sean Sagrera and Sagrera Farms. You go to the farm, you check out his incredible facility, and you bring home half a cow, a quarter of a cow, a whole cow. Maybe you can distribute it to 3 or 4 families that you're friends with. So when it's time to pull those steaks out for LSU football games, time to bring those burgers out for those late summer nights, Sagrera Farms beef just changes the game. It's the only thing we eat at the Palmer House at this point. Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef brings you our Thursday shows each and every week. All right, so I think those of you who were listening last week are pretty well aware of where I stood on this lawsuit between Ole Miss, Prince William Miel, and Devin Harper. I said this last week. If there's a contract and it says if you break the contract, this is what you owe, then that's what you owe. And my point was, like, if we can't enforce contracts anymore in collegiate athletics, like, what do we even do? That was my point. And I did say and wrote in a column that I wrote for LouisianaSports.net that I was like, I haven't seen the contract. And my assumption is that the contract says, here's what you owe if you breach the contract. And I felt like it would be that black and white. I just would not consider it'd be a strong possibility that Ole Miss's legal team was so flippant in putting these together that they couldn't enforce it. And it was my assumption that Ole Miss would not be as public as they have been with the pursuit of this money if they didn't feel like their case was airtight. But again, I left that as kind of an out, going, I haven't seen this. It's just my assumption that they figured out how to put a contract together, right? Like they put Lane Kiffin's contract together, and Lane Kiffin left to go be the coach at LSU, and LSU owes a buyout, and you pay the buyout, and it's over. That's kind of what I felt. I felt like this would be very similar to that. I didn't think there was a lot of discussion to be had. Well, credit Sam Hutchins, the Jackson Clarion Ledger, who dug deep into this, spoke with some attorneys, I think has seen some contractual language. And his piece in the Clarion Ledger today changes my tune a little bit. One, he spoke with a North Carolina professor, Barbara Osborne, who specializes in sports law. And she told the Clarion Ledger that a buyout contract has a liquidated damage clause, and it cannot be punitive, meaning LSU has to pay Ole Miss the remainder of Lane Kiffin's buyout because that's what Ole Miss owes, and that's what the buyout stipulates that he will have to pay to leave. But you can't just make up a number that's exorbitant in the court of law's view just because. There has to be a reason why, an evaluation as to what the number on the buyout is. That's what this attorney from North Carolina says. As I continue to read, it says that Ole Miss can recover only the monetary worth of Harper and Uman Mielen's services if the court determines Uman Mielen is worth $550,000 and Harper is worth $400,000. But if they're not worth that much, the clauses would be unenforceable. The quote from Osborne says, if you're looking at liquidated damages clause, that would have to be an amount that would be reasonable based on the information that both sides had at the time it was agreed to. It continues that as long as Ole Miss can provide proper documentation, it's in a strong position to be paid at least some of the buyouts, the expert says. LSU players' best shot is to argue for a reduction in the buyouts, not for the buyouts to be dropped completely. That's what the expert said. So essentially, and look, I'm not an attorney, but I did read this, and I'm just following along. What LSU is going to say, and not LSU, it's actually Devin Harper and Prince William Miel and their legal representation will say, wait a second, $550,000. Says who? That's punitive. You are trying to hold us hostage for an exorbitant amount of money that doesn't adequately reflect what I'm worth. And I don't know if that holds up for Prince William Mielen or not, because he was one of the SEC's top sack guys last year. And he has a platform in college football as a starting player on a college football playoff championship. Remember when we talked to Michael Katz earlier this week, he said that this is not a pay-for-play thing. It's a pay for the branding. It's a pay for your name, image, and likeness and what you can do for Ole Miss. Devin Harper didn't start last year. Hasn't started, played in 6 games. So to suggest that he is worth $400,000+ might be stepping out of bounds. Might be. I'm not giving you definitives here. Might be. And so this is what LSU is going to do. And now it makes more sense to me. Because if LSU does step in and pay this money, which I suggested last week that they should help if those two cannot pay, if LSU steps in and pays, you're talking about taking that out of your revenue sharing pool for this year. Well, that's almost $1 million. This is not a $40 million rev share deal. The rev share was just north of 20. So that's a big chunk that you're dipping into that you may have already allocated. So I understand now LSU's reluctance at all to help Harper and Uman-Mielen, and I understand Uman-Mielen and Harper under legal advice go, hey, well, that's not what we think we're worth. So if you want to spend a bunch of money and sue us, we'll barter that down potentially to zero or settle, but we're not paying the whole thing. And I now see LSU side and LSU player sides absolutely. If these attorneys, who know a lot better than I do, understand. Where I will now pivot is to look at Ole Miss and go, probably didn't want to make that public. Because now you kind of do look like you have egg on your face. You kind of do look like, well, we just slapped some money on this, and now it might not be enforceable if a court of law suggests that that's the inaccurate amount of money based on what we put together. It was my mistake to assume, Hunt's mistake, I'm saying now in first person, it was my mistake to assume that the contract was cut and dried. I felt like it was likely like a coach's buyout. And we see those paid every single year, with schools paying buyouts to hire coaches and schools paying buyouts to fire coaches. Like, those are black and white. I just assumed this was that. I assumed there was money in that contract. If you left, you got to pay the money. That's what I assumed. It doesn't appear that's correct now. And it appears that LSU is well within their rights to sit there and play hardball. And right now, if what I'm understanding, and again, as information comes out, I'll react to that. This is going to be a reactionary thing for me because I'm not on the inside of this deal. I don't know what the contract says. So I'm reacting to what I read and what I hear. And I withhold the right to change my tune next week if something else comes out or we get the contractual language or there's a ruling. I'll react as it may be. But now, my opinion is it feels foolish of Ole Miss to feel like they've got a potentially unenforceable contract that it's very unlikely that they're going to recoup the full $900,000+ to issue a statement about that to the media to attempt to look holier than thou and to disparage LSU, their former head coach, and two of their former players. It looks foolish now. That's my opinion. I did not feel that way a week ago. But I didn't have all the facts, and they're continuing to trickle out. The crux of the piece that Sam Hutchins wrote for the Clarion Ledger today with the opinion of legal experts is that it is very likely that this drags on. Financial cases take longer. There's not generally a rush, is what they say. This is likely to drag on well beyond the season and is likely to be settled for significantly less than what Ole Miss is demanding. And to me, that is all the reason in the world for LSU to just sit this one out. All the reason in the world for Uman-Mielen and Devin Harper to go, And by the way, just compounding that, to take LSU and Ole Miss completely out of this thing, it's still a little bit crazy to me that there's just no way to hold these guys in place. It's a free-for-all, and suggesting that you can pin them down contractually appears not to be the case. And that was something I was talking about last week. So look, I'm not too proud to change my tune. I will react to things as they come. I'm not afraid to be wrong. I'm going to give you my opinion. Last week, I thought this looked ridiculous for LSU. This week, I think Ole Miss probably stepped out of bounds on this one. Doesn't mean they're not going to get money. Just means that probably overstepped from a public perspective in Keith Carter telling the media they're going to file suit and then releasing a statement that you filed suit for something you may not be able to capture. We'll see. It'll be a devolving story, but for me now that I read this, I'm going, just let me know when it's over. We'll come back. Easton Royal set his visits for the fall. Where's he going next?
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Swing Easy Golf Club in Baton Rouge, swingeasygcbr.com, swingeasygcbr.com. Almost the weekend. Great time to squeeze in some golf. But if you're not a fan of 100-degree temperatures, not a fan of those afternoon showers, not a fan of 5-hour golf rounds, well, you can eliminate all that with Swing Easy Golf Club. Book a private bay. You can play 18 holes by yourself in an hour. Easy. You want to spend 4 hours there, but you want to do it in the comfort of the air conditioning with the television, some tunes, some friends, and some cold drinks, You can do that at Swing Easy Golf Club as well. Play Pebble Beach. Play Cypress Point. Bethpage Black, the old course at St. Andrews. They're all available right there on the simulator. All the mulligans you want, if that's what you're looking for. Go check them out. They're on Seagan at Perkins at Swing Easy Golf Club. Great, great, great simulators, incredible technology, and a ton of fun. Get by this weekend at Swing Easy Golf Club in Baton Rouge.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
Highland Insurance Group brings you the Hunt Palmer Show every single day online at HighlandIG.com. That's HighlandIG.com. Jonathan Carver and his team do great, great work when it comes to employee benefits. So if you're really getting squeezed in trying to insure your employees and you want a second opinion, contact the Highland Insurance Group. They're happy to help you out with that. They're not a silver bullet. I can't promise they're going to save you 20% off the top, but they can promise you that they'll have a conversation with you, and they can promise you that they have had success with businesses in South Louisiana in insuring their employees annually. So if you've had a tough renewal or you're dreading the one that's coming up, contact Jonathan Carbo and the Highland Insurance Group online at HighlandIG.com. All right, Easton Royal is going to be a hot topic over the course of the fall. Of course, the five-star receiver from down in New Orleans at Brother Martin has garnered attention from Texas, LSU, and Florida. He's committed to the Longhorns, but everyone thinks that LSU is still very much in the mix here, and he has set his schedule for game day visits to LSU, Texas, and Florida. It's going to be pretty fun fall for Easton Royal, I would suggest. He's going to be at LSU Labor Day weekend for LSU and Clemson. The following weekend, he's going to head to Austin, Texas. He will see Texas and Ohio State there at DKR. And then on September the 26th, he's going to go to Florida to see the Florida Gators take on the Ole Miss Rebels. So just a star-studded group of visits for Easton Royal coming up this fall. And also, he plans to come see LSU and Texas play in Tiger Stadium, see both of them in one spot on November the 14th. So a couple of trips to LSU, one to Texas, one to Florida, and we'll see what else he can mix in here. Easton Royal, to me, feels like an important recruit. I realize that no one recruit is more important than the program, especially considering what you can do in the transfer portal every single year. But I think Lane Kiffin is going to prioritize some freshmen over others. And at wide receiver, you can get on the field pretty quick and make a big impact. And I think he sees that in Easton Royal. I think he sees a Louisiana player who can come in and really help for 3 years right off the top. And that's a guy you do invest in. Maybe an offensive lineman, maybe an interior defensive lineman, maybe a quarterback. Like, you're not going to invest the top dollar on somebody that's just not ready to help right out of the gate. But wide receivers can and do. And especially when they're of the playmaking level of Easton Royal. You want to lock down the state of Louisiana. You want to do it within reason. And there are some guys that are really talented players that are going to leave the state this year. Right now, you're not going to get, one of the top quarterbacks in the country in Elijah Havens. Got an offensive lineman headed to Notre Dame. There are some that are going to leave. But Royal is a guy that I think LSU is prioritizing, that I do think LSU is willing to invest in because of the position that he plays and the skill set that he's got. And I think it's important, in a sense, to send a message about the state of Louisiana that you're planning on really making hay with the guys that you target in the state. You can always go national. You can always go into the portal. You can always get a wide receiver from Western Kentucky that fits the mold. You can always get a wide receiver from Boston College or Memphis or Louisville. But there's something about getting those guys from in the state that just kind of makes this LSU football team roll. And I've given you my thoughts on that over the course of the last 6 weeks of how I've gone back and forth on like how vital the top end of the state of Louisiana is. And I think that it would be inarguable that it's taken on less of an impact over the last 5 years with the portal because of the access you have to talent every single December and January to restock the shelves. But I also have remained steadfast that I want guys in this program that are from the state of Louisiana that are here for 3 years that make huge impacts, because I think you need Malik Neighbors and Will Campbell in the program. I think those are guys that you need to get. And Easton Royal is one of those guys. And if Texas gets him, it won't be the end of the world. I'd be stunned if he went to Florida. But if LSU gets him, I think it really flips how you look at this signing class. And you look at, man, you may have gotten every Louisiana guy that you truly targeted, and you were able to go nationally and reel in a top 5 class. Because ultimately, I think player acquisition is one of the big reasons why Lane Kiffin chose LSU. So what you got to do is go put on a show against Clemson. What you've got to do is go put on a show against Texas. What you've got to do is fill Tiger Stadium and make it as good as it can be. And you've got to put together a really good offense this year that throws the football around and puts up points and is exciting. He's got to see that, and then you've got to make the dollars and cents work to get him in the boat. It's not the end of the world if he doesn't, but it changes the way I look at this signing class if you do. And Easton Royal has never slammed that door on LSU. And the sense is that he's really interested in LSU. And you're going to get the first swing at him. And in terms of an on-campus visit, you may get the last swing at him. And both of those feel important. And if you get both, you got a real shot. You got to make the dollars and cents work. But Easton Royal is going to come to LSU for Clemson. He'll be at Texas for Ohio State. He'll be at Florida for Ole Miss. And then he'll come watch the Tigers and Longhorns in Tiger Stadium. Maybe it's a big fall for LSU on the field and in the recruiting rankings. That'd be a good thing, and Easton Royal will be a big, big part of that. It's our hour number 1 here on a Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms. Talk some Tigers with Sam Leavitt. Talk some LSU and Ole Miss lawsuit. Talk Saints with Luke Johnson. You can find that at Hunt on Saints. All our LSU talk at Hunt on LSU. Plenty of sound in our second hour. Come back after Sports Center. Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Lifetime Roofing, LifetimeRoofingLA.com, LifetimeRoofingLA.com. You got to be able to trust your roofer. Got to. So you go with the local option, Lifetime Roofing. Oftentimes, when there is a weather event that triggers a significant amount of roof damage, you get roofing companies that come in and they're just trying to make some cash. And so they'll sell you their most expensive product. That's a new roof. If you need a new roof, Lifetime Roofing will do that. But let them come out and inspect. Let them see if you just need a repair. They can do it. Let them see if you just need a fortification, a tune-up. They can do that. If you do need a new roof, let them put it in so you get that lifetime workmanship warranty from Lifetime Roofing. If you need to finance it, they can handle that. 0% for 18 months. If you've got a deductible you want to finance, they can do that too. It's Lifetime Roofing. It's a local Baton Rouge company with a Baton Rouge team here to serve South Louisiana. You can find them online at LifetimeRoofingLA.com.